Welcome to A State of Mind, the podcast dedicated to our collective awakening, healing, growth, and integration of this embodied expression of conscious awareness that we call life. My name is Julian Royce. I'm recording this here in my office in downtown Boulder, Colorado, where I work as a therapist, meditation teacher, and coach. And I'm just getting back from speaking at the Open Minds Expo, which was a conference in Denver dedicated to psychedelic-assisted therapy. And it was a really beautiful conference. It wasn't just about psychedelic-assisted therapy, but basically all aspects of ceremony and healing connected with psychedelics. And I gave a talk on Saturday and Sunday morning there on integration. It went really well. I got to meet some amazing people, and it's just so exciting to see what's happening in that space. And I got to see firsthand, if more evidence was needed, the importance of integration, the response of people there in the audience, how that can be a missing piece for a lot of people, to have an ongoing process with a group, with a coach or healer that you trust to support that integration. And so I'm excited to be offering an online integration group, trying to make it easy and accessible for everyone. It's going to be Tuesdays, 6 to 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. If you're interested in joining, send me a message, astateofmindcounsel@gmail.com. Check out my website, astateofmindcounseling.org. to learn more. I'd love to have you join. And there's a saying that I've come to love, which is that better living through chemistry may well be possible, but it requires better living, meaning we need to make better choices. And so the process of integration is this long-term process of living the life that you're meant to live. And in the context of psychedelic therapy, there's increased neuroplasticity 2 to 4 weeks after a psychedelic experience. And so to take advantage of that time, to install new habits, new patterns, and try new things out. Because if you're coming to see me, or you're going to ceremony, or you're exploring therapy, whether psychedelic or not, chances are you're wanting to make changes in your life. Otherwise, you wouldn't be coming there. So check out my integration group if that appeals to you. We have an online community that is growing every day, and I'm happy to be leading it. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Paul Kingston. I know him as JP, and he is an inspired, passionate coach and teacher around health and well-being, especially for men, and especially around sexuality. He teaches sexual kung fu practices that are amazing, even life-changing. And I'm happy that I got to experience some of those with him. I worked with him some last spring, as we share in this episode. Also seen him in workshops in spaces like that, and he's a great teacher. And one of the cool things about this episode is he shares some of these practices and techniques with us. If you're watching the video on YouTube, you can see firsthand some of these practices. JP has a wealth of knowledge and insights to offer us. It was a treat to have him here. One of my personal highlights from this episode was the affirmation, I am shameless, I am fearless, I am doubtless. I've been working with that myself, and I've been bringing that to some of the people I work with, and it can be life transforming. I am shameless, referring to the past, I am fearless, referring to the present, and I am doubtless, referring to the future. So try it out. Without further ado, I bring you JP. So I'm here today with Paul. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, and it's been fun to watch your growth, your work, all the stuff you put on Instagram, your videos, and they get to be at some of the workshops with you that you did when you were in the area in the past, and we got to work together one-on-one, which was sweet. We were just remembering that day where we came here, we did a session together, and then we went skiing. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great to be able to work and play, and we cultivated a lot of really beautiful energy through the work, and then took it up to the mountains and let it express itself, So yeah, that was really awesome.
Yeah, felt good.
And it was great to work with you, man.
Thanks.
One thing that I love about the work in person, in particular, is we get to really see each other, and I think one of the things that many of us desire deep down is the ability to be witnessed, to be seen, to be heard.
Yeah.
So it's great to see you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as human beings, we want to be seen, we want to be witnessed, and we need to be. And part of what the work I do with people is how we can witness ourselves, and how our awareness can hold us in a lot of ways. And this is kind of new for me to learn about this with attachment theory. And in a lot of ways, we can learn to, we can do this reparenting work. We can be that parent that maybe we missed, that we didn't have. And our awareness is holding us and can hold us. And we can tune into that and feel that. And almost like the mother or father, I think in a sense our awareness transcends our personality, our individuality even. They can access that kind of transpersonal domain. It can be, some people maybe think about it as the source or essence, and to be able to, I don't even want to make that big a deal about it, just that we can witness ourselves and provide that, and then we can do that with other people.
Mm-hmm.
That quality of being seen and feeling yourself being seen.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a missing piece too, because even if you are witnessing someone, for them to receive that and take that in and feel themselves being felt
Mm-hmm.
is another way to say it. It's so important, so valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's difficult to fully witness somebody if we don't fully witness ourselves.
Here you
If
go.
we don't
Yeah.
fully like know ourselves. A lot of
Yeah.
people will constantly give their attention, their energy outward, but we forget about ourselves, and we forget about all of the different essences of ourselves, the parts of ourselves, whether that was from childhood or even our literal parts like our organs, glands, and tissues.
Yeah.
And when we can know ourselves and have a relationship with the full body that we've been gifted, this full vessel, and we love ourselves, then we can share that with others, and we can see and be present and create this really harmonious exchange and be mirrors for each other and continue to learn and grow and experience that transpersonal essence and dimensional space that you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do it in an embodied way and in a relationship and connection. And obviously, I mean, in contrast to that is our technology, which is really a miracle and amazing and beautiful, and the ability to be on Zoom and FaceTime, and yet more and more of us are feeling disconnected. Even though the technology is connecting us more than ever before. So I think we can bring what you're sharing to all of it and show up more fully. We have to push against the tendency to just be kind of surface level, image level, a talking head level, the mind body disconnect, the doing everything just with our thinking mind. That's really where our culture kind of pushes us, I feel like. And I think the work you're offering is really helping people, be fully embodied, be fully present, be more like bring it all in line.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, it's about turning on our awareness system, or what I like to refer to as the self-sensory system, our ability to feel and be present. And yeah, a lot of the world is really stuck in the head. And in the Tao, a lot of the Taoist lineages, they found that those who were constantly perpetuated with disease had too much heat in the head.
Yeah.
And so that's overthinking. And that's not being grounded. And that's why I love the Taoist lineage, is because it's a very grounding lineage. And we work with the earth. We work with the elements. And I love this phrase so much. In the Tao, it says, go to the earth and heaven will chase you. And so a lot of people, we're so up here in the head and trying to maybe ascend. I know for myself, at least I was. I was always just trying to how can I ascend? But I was losing my foundation and I was becoming ungrounded. And through that process of grounding myself, grounding my energy, it is that allowed me to have more cognition and more presence and more awareness of what's here. And that, everyone has their own path, but that's part of the process of becoming embodied, is grounding ourselves.
It's so important. Yeah. And so people I'm working with, I'm doing that with them as foundational to mindfulness. I don't even like the word mindfulness anymore, but I don't know what word to use, but mindful. And then people, the kind of sense of that, right, it's kind of perpetuating that mind-body split, unfortunately. So
what about presence?
Presence is a great word. Or somatic awareness, somatic being embodiment. But a lot of people don't really have a sense of what that means.
Yeah.
But presence is a great word. Yeah, being present instead of mindful, which could imply more in the head or more mind that's somehow separate from body. Or
totally. It's almost like, I think with the state that we are trying to achieve with the terminology of mindfulness is actually mindlessness. And so it's this weird paradox.
Well, there's this great ancient saying that I'm sure you've heard of: the mind makes a wonderful servant and a terrible master.
Yeah.
And that's so deep. That's so profound. I keep coming back to that one.
Yeah,
Because, like, I think, it's interesting the word mindless. I mean, we need to be able to think and think clearly,
totally.
but we don't want to live in a reality where we're trapped by constant, repetitive, often negative thinking that's usually critical and tearing us down. And
Yeah,
so if we could turn that off from time to time, I don't tell people, I don't like to say turn it off, but
right.
to be able to find presence and a way of being in which that's not overtaking you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Noticing when those unconscious behaviors are presenting themselves.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, wait, that's me acting out of this childhood experience.
Mm.
Oh, wait, that's me acting out of fear
Yeah.
or shame or guilt, whatever it is. And yeah, when we have awareness of something, we can choose otherwise.
Yeah. Or that's just me getting lost in thought. Could be that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, do you want to share with people like what you're doing, the work you're doing in the world?
Yeah, I would love to. It's funny. I was just teaching a workshop this weekend,
Yeah.
and at the very end, one of the guys was like, "So, how? Like, I tell people all the time what you do, but can you tell me what you do?" And I'm like, man, I don't even like. I'm still at this point now. It's where things are evolving and growing, and I'm like, how do I explain this? But in more of a general sense of what I do, what it seems like I do is I help men particularly shed the layers of self, shed the layers of our physical being, our mental being, our emotional being, and learn how to rewire or rewild ourselves back to our true essence, to come back to the truth of who we are. And the way that I do that is a big portion of it is through the teachings, the technologies of sexual kung fu. And so, sexual kung fu is the skillful art or practice of sexology. And a lot of that is returning to the root of who we are. So our sexuality, our sexual being has been deemed bad in a lot of our society, has been pushed down and shamed. And it's the foundation. It's the foundation of who we are, where everything is born out of sex, two things coming together and creating this essence, this being. And so part of it is helping men reclaim their sexuality through these specific practices, while also using, not for everybody, but for some men, like what we did, we get naked. We strip the layers and we honor ourselves in this way, and we allow ourselves to be seen. I know for myself, I held a lot of shame around being naked in the locker room or being seen naked around groups of friends. And the moments where I was able to shed those layers that I'm talking about, the more I found liberation. And so, I use the technology of sexual kung fu that has been brought to the West from Montauk Chia primarily. And then I use mental, emotional, subconscious rewiring practices. You talked about the inner child work. I do a lot of inner child work with clients and lifestyle integration. So, that's not a great elevator pitch, but
that's beautiful. It's so profound and so deep, and also very like real, physical, embodied, getting to our sexuality, witnessing our bodies, like touching ourselves, right? Like working with our energy.
Yeah.
And going down to that root that you're talking about of our sexuality, which is connected with grounding and the earth too. Like you're saying, like the essence of life, really, with what's creating us. And, we need the another way to talk about what you're sharing is like making all this more conscious, like bringing our consciousness there, bringing awareness there, bringing having more choice there. So like reclaiming our sexuality. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, so like I know how to have sex, or I have a sex life, or so it's not like getting something you don't already have, but it's like consciously claiming it. Like we're in a space today in 2024 where like we can really create different kinds of relationships, different kinds of choices. We have, at least those of us like here in America and the West with, freedom and money, like we're so much less restricted by the past and like some of these cultural things, and yet we still are so impacted by shame and societal norms and all the stuff you're sharing about too. But there's an opportunity to really reclaim this and create something new in a sense. Like we're not in ancient China, but we can super appreciate those practices around health, longevity, sexuality, and make use of them in this context. I think I like the word integration and honoring these lineages, but bringing them into our world today.
Totally.
And it's going to be something new, but that doesn't mean we're not honoring the past. It doesn't mean that we're not getting grounded. It means that we're just in some of it is like maybe just like window dressing. Like we wear different clothes or we have different music or all these things that are constantly changing. The technology is constantly changing, but our body is the most amazing technology that's ever existed, like by far.
Yeah.
All our computer stuff can't really hold a candle to the neurons within our nervous system, right? So
totally,
it's really like, how do we dive deep and access that? And for those who want to, at least.
Yeah.
And at least for whether or not you want to like spend a lot of time doing a lot of, sexual yoga practices, you can at least like do the work of shedding the shame and having a more fulfilling, integrated life that honors these parts of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Make a choice there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done studies on shame, and when people are feeling ashamed, whether that's in a present moment or just like a generalization of their life, it disrupts our hormones.
Oh, interesting.
And so if we are in a group together, and we're naked and we're shameful, or we're like, about to have sex and we're feeling ashamed, instead of activating the oxytocin and the endorphins and all of these really feel-good chemicals that support life, or the growth hormone, the testosterone, it'll actually put us into a cortisol response. And so that's stress. And so it just suppresses all of these really healthy hormones and chemicals that we need. And so, a big thing that I teach all of my clients, I learned this from my teacher, Lauren Johnson. It's an affirmation. Of course, with affirmations, for me at least, it's about integrating it, feeling it, embracing it, embodying it. But it's, I'm shameless, I'm fearless, I'm doubtless.
I love that.
And we can eradicate fear, which is this very, fear is rooted in our kidneys. And our kidneys are the essence of our sexual energy, for us men in particular. And if we have fear in the body, that puts us into a state of stress, a shock, primarily. And so by saying and embodying, I'm shameless, I'm fearless, I'm doubtless, we eradicate fear in the past, which is shame. We eradicate fear in the future, which is doubt. We eradicate fear in the now.
Love that.
So, at the essence of what this work is, it's learning to love and accept ourselves.
Yeah, it's so deep, so needed. I'm shameless, I'm fearless, I'm doubtless.
Yeah.
That's a great takeaway.
Yeah, my teacher said, tattoo that on the inside of your forehead. Anytime that you're feeling those emotions arise, of course, with the work that you do, I'm sure you're helping them identify where that comes from, and then shift the state of mind or the beliefs around it all, which is essential and necessary. But one thing that I do love about this work in particular around the universal healing Tao, the sexual Kung Fu, is we're shedding light in the areas of our life that have been darkened for so long. And so I like the analogy of a parasite. When we are doing a parasite cleanse and we're fasting the body from the typical foods that we might consume, the parasites get really aggravated. And we're basically shining light on the parasites and saying like, hey, we're not going to feed you. So in that starvation, what happens is they look for more energy and they start to trick us or like play games with us and say, hey, if you eat that ice cream or if you eat that candy bar, you'll be really happy. You'll be satisfied. We'll make you feel really good. But as we starve them out, they start to dwindle, they start to go away. And then after we move through this withdrawal period, we feel really good. Like, wow, I don't have that attachment anymore.
Right.
And with the universal healing Tao, essentially we're shining violet, pure, loving, and healing light onto the body and into these places where the shadows have been in control, but they're just lying in the darkness. have existed for so long, and we shine light on it and we say, oh, wow, look, here they are. Here's what's alive for us. Here's what's present for us. It can stir up a lot in us because we're getting to the root of who we are. But as we continue to shine that healing, loving light into all parts of our body, eventually those things just dissipate. And so that's a big part of it. I'm shameless, I'm fearless, I'm doubtless, shining that happy, healing light into the body.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's a piece here around identity, how we identify. A lot of the work I've been doing with people lately, it's like, I'm fearless, I'm shameless, I'm fearless, I'm doubtless. I think that's beautiful. It's an affirmation. We're using the word I to identify with that, what I would call like our bigger self or our true self. But to be able to name, like, when you are feeling fear, shame, doubt, insecurity, or anger, or whatever it is, you can name that, and then it's no longer who you are. It's something you're experiencing.
Yeah.
So, like, I am shameless is like the big self, but within that, I experience shame sometimes, and then I can name that, and I can be with it. But it doesn't. If you can name it and work with it, it's not overtaking you. It's not like I am shame. It's like I am experiencing shame.
Yeah.
I'm noticing shame. I'm having this memory come up, and I felt shame back then. Something similar is happening now, and I'm feeling some version of that now. Then we're making it conscious, and we're naming it, and we can work with it. And it's no longer, Yeah,
it's definitely twofold. It's like we don't want to ignore it.
Right.
Just be like, turn it away. Like, I'm shameless, I'm furious, I'm doubtless. That doesn't exist anymore. But I noticed for myself, like, I used to experience a lot of shame and didn't know what that was. I didn't know, like, oh, wow, like, I'm actually really ashamed of myself right now. And now, when those things come up, I can name it and be like, oh, man, this is what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I'm going to name it. I'm going to bring light to it.
Yeah.
And now I can move through it because we got to feel it to heal it.
Yeah. Feel it to heal it. And I like how you're bringing in the body piece or even the organs, or maybe it's connected with a particular part of the body. I mean, it almost certainly is. You just don't tend to always make that connection. But that image of shining light in the body, I mean, that just doing that is like an amazing practice. Like imagining light in your body. I want to get more into some of the details of what you're working with sexual kung fu. You're working a lot with men. But if we zoom out a little bit, like just on the culture, I think it's a confusing place, first of all, to be alive. And I think I'm just having this thought now. We get the message, or at least I got the message, like we're in this more enlightened era. We don't need to feel shame about our body or sexuality. Like, we get that message, right, from the media. We get it to some degree from school, or maybe even from our parents. And yet our felt experience is not congruent with that for vast majority of people. Really for everyone, unless you do this deeper inner work. So it's like we're getting that message, we have that idea, we get that theory. Yeah. Oh, you're gay, be gay. Oh, you want to be a trans person, be a trans person. Totally. We get that message, but
be whoever you want to be.
Be whoever you want to be. The felt experience is one of shame, doubt, fear, all this stuff. And it's like we have to actually do a lot of inner work to make that more real. And like there's just something funny going on where we're told those positive messages, which is great, but like we're also being told all these other messages that are complete opposite to those. Yeah. And those can be very subtle, and they can come in many different ways. And so it's kind of like a both and. Yeah. So we want to move forward in the positive way, but we can't deny that, like, regardless of what the literal law says or what you can watch on TV or look up on YouTube, or, oh, we have all this freedom, or we can be whatever we are, we're still getting all these messages, and part of it is intergenerational trauma. Yeah. And so we're getting all this shit, all this stuff from the past seeping through. And of course there are large groups out there that are shaming people very explicitly for their sexuality, that are saying homosexuality is wrong, or to look at another naked person is somehow wrong. So there are people growing up in more religious communities or things like that. And so,
yeah. It's really interesting, and it's a delicate matter to work with and to maneuver and dance around, because we are conditioned beings, and we've been conditioned to believe certain things, not just in this lifetime, but through those different generations or in different past lives. I've worked with people who experienced a lot of past life trauma, and it's showing up, it's emanating in their life today.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
and so we have that aspect to look through and the lens to look through. And then we also have the lens of toxicity and what, not just like what we're seeing, but what's also in our food and in our air, in our water. Because and what we're wearing, like there's endocrine disruptors everywhere. And these endocrine disruptors imbalance our hormones and can shift our state of being and are also our mental makeup. And so I am a huge proponent for be who you truly desire to be. But also, I think we need to be careful because there are studies showing that when certain frogs consume glyphosate or atrazine, they start to really want first off, they're like a male frog, their penis shrinks.
Jeez.
And then they're really attracted to the same sex. And same sex homoerotic bonding has been something that people have been doing for thousands of years. In Rome and in Greece, there were really beautiful spaces for men to come together and work with, the bathhouses of Rome were places that you just hung out naked. Gymnasiums means a place to exercise naked. And so there were a lot of these really encouraged spaces for men to come together and sexually interact together. My point is, with the food and the endocrine disruptors, it's also changing our hormones and our physical being so that we lose the essence of who we are. And so that's why I'm a huge proponent of clean organic food, clean water, clean air. And knowing the body, having a healthy relationship with the body. And from there, then we can really choose, who is it that I am and who is it that I am choosing to be.
Yeah. I mean, you just shared a lot and named a lot of important pieces, and it seems like you're really making an effort in your own personal lifestyle to live that way, follow that way. But like, I mean, just to kind of recap, like the glyphosate, like being sprayed on crops, like it's really, really terrible. It's a dark rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah.
And then the clothing we're wearing, the contact with our skin, the food we're eating, the big pharmaceuticals that we're taking. I mean, there's a lot here. Sucralose and like some of the artificial sweeteners.
Birth control found in the water.
Birth control in the water.
We're full of microplastics. Like
all the microplastics,
Yeah.
So that word toxicity, we can do our part individually, but hopefully we can change some of our laws and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the top things that you do that you would recommend? Like, we can't do everything. We can't live in a perfect bubble.
Right.
What would you... What are some things you're doing that you feel like are really impactful?
Yeah. So I was just actually going to say, like, the foundation or the step-by-step process in this universal healing Tao work, or with Qigong particularly, is first purge, tonify, and then we can circulate energy. And so detox. They were talking about detoxification 8,000 years plus ago, the ancient yogis, the ancient Taoists, and now we need to detox more than ever. And so consuming superfoods, consuming high-quality nutrition is important. It's a must for me and what I encourage.
Can I ask you a question about that? Like, do you eat meat?
I do.
So meat is a part of your diet.
Yes.
And you want to avoid meat that's been raised with hormones and with all the stuff. So you could call that organic. But then if you go out to eat, that's usually not on the menu, right? Like, how do you navigate situations like that?
Yeah. Well, fortunately in Boulder, there's a lot of farm-to-table restaurants that we can go to.
Yeah.
And I love the phrase, like, get as close to your farmer as possible. And so, there's that aspect, like being a conscious consumer. Now, I mean, we have wild pastures here, which is regenerative beef and burgers that are delicious, and
Oh,
the fries are fried in tallow. So that's like one of my favorite restaurants that I go to. I just went to the other day. Oh, it's on the corner, right across from Prana, I think. It's blanking me, but it's a farm to table restaurant, and so yeah, I'm always looking for those.
You're making an
those
effort
places.
to go to places like that.
Yeah, but these things, money adds up quick, and so just do. My encouragement is do the best you can with where you're at, with what you have, with what you're doing. Eat whole foods, eat real foods.
Yeah.
What it comes down to, that's my encouragement, and be aware, educate yourself so that you're, again, being a conscious consumer,
Making good choices. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to recap, detoxify.
Yeah.
Can you say that again? Tonify?
Purge, tonify, and then circulate. But detoxification is like part of that purging process. And so that's kind of like the nutritional aspect. Physically, shaking 3 minutes a day is such a great exercise to
we did that together.
Yeah.
You're just kind of shaking the whole body.
Yeah.
On the balls of your feet.
We're just... Can I stand up?
Yeah, do it.
Oh, excuse me, sailor. We just stand, shake.
Nice.
You can take in some deep breaths. Working with the breath as well is also...
together.
Yeah. So if we just inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, we're going to really start to purge and detoxify while we shake. About 80% of our detoxification comes from the lungs. And so it's what we inhale and exhale. And so if we're consciously exhaling, that's going to help us to detoxify. And so shaking, tapping is a great practice. Just acutapping, where you're tapping on different parts of the body, tapping down the arm. This is what's going to move lymph in the body. And so from a physical aspect, that's how I look at the purging.
Love that.
I'm
just going to pause for a second. I'm going to check the video. Make sure it's all good. Take this bit out. All right, sweet.
Cool.
Well, what is meant by tonify?
Yeah, tonify, there's a couple ways to do it. Acutapping to different organs of the body is a way to do it. So, and also working with what's called the 6 healing sounds and colors. Our major organs, the lungs, the heart, liver on the right side, the spleen on the left side, and the kidneys are associated with different emotions, different elements, and different colors. For example, the kidneys are associated with the color blue. The emotion that oftentimes gets stagnated or stuck there is fear. And we can tonify it by breathing in the blue light of calm. So we work with the calm emotion, we work with the blue light, we can breathe happy, healing light into it, and we can tap it, and that's going to tonify. So we purge the fear with a specific sound, which is CHU, and then we can breathe in the happy, healing light of blue, calm, watery essence, and that can relax it. And so that is one example of tonification. There's also a practice called packing chi. So you can pack chi into the body with specific postures and holding and breathing. And so one of the greatest ways of packing chi is called embracing the tree. And you stand as if you're holding a tree. And you just hold, you stand. Let me just demonstrate that real quick. I know there's a table here, but we would get into horse stance. So feet are shoulder width apart. We spiral out at the ankles, the knees, and the hips. We gently tuck the pelvis so we have a nice tall spine. We bring our hands right to our lower dantian. We bubble it up like a geyser. We rotate the hands towards our chest and we're right at our clavicles. Holding this, some people will start with their elbows out. We just want to relax the elbows. We would hold this for 3 upwards to 20 minutes. And this, we're pulling chi and energy up from the earth. And we're just imagining that we're a tree. And we're just working with the tree essence, the tree element, breathing deep, even breathing into our balls.
Are we imagining we're breathing up from the earth?
Yeah.
Breathing up from the earth?
Breathing up from the earth.
It's beautiful.
And after, sometimes for some people, like a couple minutes in, the arms start to shake because they're being held. But if you can draw that energy in and allow that to supply your upper body, I've gotten to states where I've been holding for 5 to 10 minutes, my arms just feel like they're floating.
Beautiful.
And so there are these specific postures that we can use to pack chi, and that's also going to help to tonify.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, and I do some of that, I call it earth breathing practice with some people, bringing up the earth energy. And it's actually, I learned from Christopher Wallace as a Tantra teacher, but he's like classically trained in Sanskrit and he's a great scholar. This practice of like dropping our awareness down into the earth and breathing up earth energy into the body, it's like an ancient yogic Indian practice and probably in China and other places too, but something like, it's really beautiful and can feel really good. And I just want to kind of reflect on, I mean, you're coming from this like Chinese kind of medicine, Taoist point of view, lineage, and it's great to like learn the map and the colors and the sounds, and then we can also just kind of like appreciate the deeper principles. And maybe for you, kidneys have a different association or different color, but you're still working with your energy and and there's some Buddhist practices and things maybe they have different colors or different sounds or different mantras, and I think that that's less important than the underlying principles and intentions. I just wanted to offer that.
Absolutely. I think the deepest principle of it is to have a relationship with it.
There you go. Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Yeah.
I was teaching in New York 2 weekends ago, and I like to do this inner smile meditation. And it's literally you just put a smile on your face. You hold the smile for 30 seconds, and then you start to smile into the eyes and into the mind, down to the heart, down to all the different organs, and then you circulate it up the back, down the front. But I guided the group to smile into the heart, the lungs, the liver, the spleen, and the kidneys. And afterwards, 2 guys made a comment of like, I've actually never even thought about my spleen. I didn't know where my spleen was.
It's not one often talked about.
It's not something that I've ever like
where is the
felt
spleen?
Into. Yeah, it's on the left-hand side underneath the rib cage.
Okay.
And it's
that's interesting.
Kind of,
my gut was right because my hand went there.
Yeah. And so, it's about having a relationship with the whole body.
Yeah.
And if we have a relationship with it, if we have awareness of where things are at, when we're noticing tension in a specific place, we can say, what does that feel like? Let me breathe into that. Let me bring some awareness, some happy, healing, loving light. Because the body doesn't know the difference between a real smile and a fake smile. When we put on a smile, it's communicating love. It's communicating joy.
Well, that's beautiful. And if we connect that back to what we were talking about earlier with attachment theory and like an inner reparenting work, you could imagine like your ideal father or mother smiling and you're receiving that as an infant or child. Or to put it in a more religious context, if you have like a teacher or a religious figure or the Buddha or whoever, Jesus, whatever it is, imagine receiving love, imagine receiving that smile from them. And it's kind of like technology of healing our inner wounds. You can open to that.
I'm getting the chills because you're talking about something that I've been presently learning about.
Nice.
And as somebody who's experienced sexual trauma in my life, we were talking about at the beginning, like this is something you'd be open to talking about. I've done a lot to to love on myself and to forgive the perpetrator per se. And we can get a little bit deeper into that specific topic in a moment. But the point that I'm bringing up is my teacher has been sharing with me like people who have had really extreme sexual trauma where they couldn't even trust a friend, another man. And so the meditation that he's prescribed them and that I'm also currently experimenting with is for 30 days at the beginning of, you start with the new moon. And of course you can do this whenever you want, but it's to first smile in to yourself and imagine just the sun is shining upon you for 30 days. And then if you have trauma with another man, you would smile into a figure or a being, or imagine Jesus or Buddha or Krishna, somebody who you know you can trust, is just standing in front of you, smiling at you. And you do that 3 to 5 minutes.
That's exactly what
every single day.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then eventually you get to a point where you're the person who you want to trust, or somebody who you want to trust, is standing in front of you. And they're smiling into you, and you're smiling into them. And so I love how you're just intuitively tapped into this technology, because it's ancient technology.
Ancient technology, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to reflect on, like, when I was first getting into Buddhism, because that's been a big part of my path and background, and like learning some practices of like, you visualize a Buddha, it's made of light, and it's in the sky in front of you, and you can like relate to that on a kind of more fundamentalist level, like, oh, the Buddha is the perfect teacher or whatever, and you got to do this practice exactly right. And then like later, like studying different religion and psychology, and it's like came to appreciate what we're talking about. Look at it like a technology. It's not about what, the particular image. It's about connecting with the source of that love and receiving it. And it could be, like you just said, it could be Krishna, it could be Jesus, it could be whatever. And I just think that's so true. I just think it's good to like share that perspective. Yeah. Because then we can appreciate it, but it's like we're not holding it so tightly. You're not getting fundamentalist about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
I appreciate you sharing, your own story. You got, because we were talking about this before we started recording, but you had a negative, difficult, bad experience when you were younger, but that has led you to doing this work that you're doing. Do you want to speak to that?
Totally, yeah. When I was 13 years old, I was sexually abused and taken advantage of by a basketball coach. So somebody who I had really trusted and, worked a lot with, he ended up taking advantage of me. And from 13 to 26, I held a ton of shame around it. But didn't know like why, or didn't fully understand it. Because there were things that would happen that were pleasurable. I was like, oh wow, like, yeah, this is kind of nice. Nothing penetrative or not like physical touch of the genitals. It wasn't until my genitals were touched where I knew that, like, okay, this is like
a line that being crossed.
Like something within me was like, whoa, that's not good. But there were things that felt good, and I didn't know why, even though I knew that what he had done was terrible. And so I didn't tell anybody from 13 to 26. I went whole 13 years not telling anybody, experiencing the moments, the flashbacks come up every single day primarily. It was rare, like, if I could go a day without having, like, at the very end of the day, like, oh, I haven't thought about that. Oh, here it is. Now I'm thinking about it.
It would pop up, like, almost every day.
Yeah. And then following that, just that moment, oftentimes I would see myself on stage talking to hundreds of people about the experience. And I was like, there's no fucking way. Like, I can't do that. I can't tell anybody. Like, what would people think of me if they knew the truth? And because my 13-year-old self took blame. It's like,
Mm.
I allowed this to happen. And so as I'm navigating myself through college and started studying different holistic health practices, I came across the book, The Tao of Sexology by Stephen Chang, and started to learn more about my sexual energy, my sexual essence, my sexual being. Worked with this practice that Stephen Chang calls perineum power, and just squeezing the perineum, moving it up to the head or into different parts of the body, and noticing wow, that moves a lot of energy. I actually started to get high doing it. Wow. And mind you, I was smoking a lot of weed and doing acid, not a lot, but at this moment of my life, I was doing acid, once every couple weeks, going to a concert or something like that.
What age?
I was 23 or 24.
Okay.
Yeah. And so once I found this book and started trying to apply things, I started noticing the ability, or I started noticing I was shining light onto these shadows of myself that I was holding shame in, guilt, fear. And shortly after that, while I'm really integrating with a lot of this work and finding a deeper relationship with my body, I was finally able to share it with a girlfriend at the time. And when I did that, I felt so liberated. I was like, wow, it feels good to share this. And knowing that I needed to share it, but also knowing that I still needed a lot of work to do around my sexuality. And yeah, so fast forward a few years, I've studied many different modalities around holistic lifestyle coaching, around mental emotional rewiring, around moving energy in the body. And I was getting into nature a lot. I was getting naked in nature and sharing that experience with people, sharing how good it feels to strip the layers and go to hot springs and be the one who's not wearing clothes at the more of the places where it's encouraged.
Clothing optional.
Yeah. And notice that I was able to release even more shame, release more guilt, release more fear and doubt. And then eventually one of my buddies reached out to me. He was like, hey man, I teach this class, would love for you to teach with me. And from there I started learning more of the formal principles of sexual kung fu, because at the beginning it was just studying a lot, via book and text. And once I started to practice, I was like, oh, I've been doing this for a long time. It was almost like a remembrance of my own life and in the past. And through that, I witnessed a lot of really profound healing in my body, and eventually the ability to share this experience that I went through at 13 years old with my clients and with now the public on social media and through different podcasts. And so I really credit a lot of this work to how I'm able to show up now, because I always say one thing that I love to say is teach what you need the most. And I needed this the most. So now I'm here to teach it and share it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been a passion of yours to share that and help people shed the shame.
Yeah.
And overcome that. And it's interesting about just being naked and how that can be done in the right way. It could be shedding shame.
Yeah. I think so many of us are afraid to be labeled something if we're naked. I'm talking for guys. We're afraid, a lot of guys, my own experience as well, was afraid to be labeled gay or bisexual for being naked around another man. And I recognize that that's a lot of the homophobia culture that's been kind of pressed upon me throughout generations, but yeah, just by being able to freely do that and not label it anything. It doesn't need to be labeled anything.
There you go. Yeah, that can be part of the healing you're talking about.
Yeah.
We associate nudity with sexuality, but we can decondition that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we can just be naked, or we can even see someone else being naked without it needing to be a sexualized thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's an interesting one. Yeah, I think my first experience seeing a lot of nudity was at Burning Man the first time I
I'm
went,
sure.
which was in 2013, and it's wild. But then, like, it's interesting how quickly. I mean, first of all, it can be very shocking to see someone who's naked or partially naked, but then how quickly the mind can just adjust to that, and it can become a new kind of norm.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we're very conditional beings, and the culture and context we're in will change how we show up or what, But I think there's a lot of power in undoing that conditioning and taking back the power to yourself, and finding what's true for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
But thanks for sharing your story. I mean, I think it's brave of you, and I think it's good just to share, like, that happened to you. But it's also it's kind of like the rose and the thorn. And some people talk about post-traumatic growth. There's post-traumatic stress. There's all the issues from trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But then the healing of that and working through that can, like in your case, like it can be something that motivates you to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
But just sharing that, I think, can be healing, because it's taking out the shadow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to also let people know that male sexual trauma, sexual abuse is far more common than I think most realize. I forget the exact number and the exact study, but I believe 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 8, I think, boys report it, and it's more actually like 1 out of 4 have been sexually traumatized.
Hard to know, but it's probably truth in that.
Yeah.
It tends to, like what you just shared, like 13 years, you didn't want to admit that. You want to talk about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've even shared that experience with people who I know who were also coached by this individual, and I told him about it years later, and he's like, dude, he did the same thing to me.
Oh, really?
And he's like, I haven't told anybody.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah.
And this person wound up going to jail for this?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, I more importantly than stating that it's much more common than we think, or than we may realize, I just want people to know that you're not alone. You're not alone in this. And if you've experienced something like this and you haven't told somebody, it's okay. And I encourage it. Find somebody safe. Find someone like yourself.
Yeah.
Go to Julian. And open up, because it can really be very liberating.
I mean, yeah, liberating. It can release stuck energy.
Yeah.
Of course, healing takes its own time. So even just hearing that, like planting the seed and then trusting the process you're in around it. So you don't need to force things.
No.
Yeah, it's such a thorny, complex issues or set of issues, but to kind of zoom out again with the society piece, like part of what I'm hearing from you and seeing with you is like our sexuality, talking about it more openly, connecting it with our health and our wellness and our life force energy. And like we need that message to get out there more.
Basically. Yeah, I think it's important to normalize these conversations. I
guess part of what I'm thinking is just the intergenerational trauma, the cultural conditioning, the shame around sexuality, all that stuff contributes to perpetuating more trauma in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've wondered why this man did what he did to me, and have come to forgiveness.
Oh, good.
And
there's a good chance that he may have experienced something similar.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, Yeah, can we start to have these conversations so that we don't perpetuate it?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of our world sexualizes humans. Whether that's billboards or TV or pornography, and yeah, we don't need to sexualize each other.
Yeah.
Like, we're all beautiful people. We all have body parts, and I think the more that, I'm not suggesting that we all just wear nothing walking down the streets. There's utility to clothes. Keeps the sun off of our back. It keeps. There's utility to it, but it's like a fingerprint. A penis is unique, and it's like a fingerprint. We all have one. Men have one. And can we just honor it for the technology that it is, which, yes, it has the ability to create life, to plant seeds.
Yeah.
But I also love the ancient esotericness of it, which in the Sanskrit language, it's called a lingam. And lingam means pillar of light.
Love that.
And in the Tao, in the reflexology of the penis, the head of the penis is connected to the heart. And so with these two different cultures or theories of philosophies, we have the outermost extension of our penis head is the heart of our body. So our hearts, the outermost extension is the mushroom. Sanskrit, the lingam is the pillar of light. Dr. Jack Kruse actually did a study and found that the tongue and the penis of a male emits the most light out of any body part on the body. So these ancient wise ones knew what they were talking about when they named him what they named him.
And he was like measuring light emitting from the body?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so that's the beautiful part of this human body that's so amazing and so complex that we're talking about. The most advanced technology. And when we learn how to work with its power, with its uniqueness and its essence, we can learn how to heal ourselves. We can learn how to manifest and create. And Napoleon Hill talks about this whole topic in his book Think and Grow Rich from 1912 or whatever it is, 1904. He talks about sexual transmutation and how to harness the energy, and it doesn't get into the details of how. Mantak Chia, fortunately, has brought these teachings from the East, from his master teacher, White Cloud, and now we have more of these concrete ways to work with it. And I'm kind of going off of a tangent, but that's the beauty of what we all have available to us when we learn to work with it and not be subjugated to the conditioning of society that sexualizes everything.
Sexualizes everything, yeah. Yeah, that's a huge rabbit hole we don't have to go down a lot today, but there does seem to be, it's kind of dark, but like just large-scale social control and engineering where we ramp up the sexualization and yet also increase the fear and shame and taboo, and it's like, I mean, obviously sex sells, it's all over advertising, it's, just there's a lot of there's a lot of forces at work to take a power away from ourselves, and unfortunately our sexuality gets projected onto like these idealized images, which now in our world today are like probably going to be more and more AI computer generated, not even looking at real humans anymore. And then we're feeling shame that we don't look like that. Instead of what you're sharing of like everyone's unique and different, and can we celebrate that? And actually be in touch with our actual power and actual body and what actually feels good to us rather than what we've been told we are supposed to look like and all that stuff. And
man. I mean, there's, in the world that I'm in, I'm aware of specific groups of people, and there's tons of groups where men are using penis enlargement tools, and it's just for the vanity to grow their penis because they don't like the way their penis looks.
Does any of that stuff actually work?
Apparently it does, but you got to be like really dedicated and really consistent with it, as with anything. And with the Taoist practices, there are ways to grow the penis, to lengthen the penis, and to grow the balls. But
I think that more is like fully expanding into your potential.
Exactly.
Rather than adding something extra onto yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I always say, this is about loving and accepting yourself for who you are and where you're at right now, and being eager for the greatest expression of yourself.
There you go. Yeah, I love
And
that.
so instead of just like isolating, like, oh man, I wish I had a bigger dick. It's like, no, love your dick. Love the cock that you've been given, and know that you can use technology to expand, to grow. Not just your penis, your balls, but in every cell of your body.
And just on a more practical level, you can strengthen and tonify these every now and increase your blood flow, and it's connected with our life force. I really appreciate how in ancient China, in ancient India, and Tibet, which are cultures I've studied, it's probably, I'm sure, in other cultures too, but those are the ones where I see it most explicitly taught that like our sexual health and our vitality is like one and the same. Like, and so a lot of Tibetan medicine actually, they have a lot of aphrodisiacs and a lot around sexual health. I think in Ayurveda and Taoist Chinese medicine too, and it's like increasing the blood flow, and you can appreciate that and engage with those practices, those medicines, that understanding without, like, even as a monk, right? Like, so it's more about like circulating the chi and the life energy, and that feeling connected with nature and with everything, rather than like isolating, like I'm just gonna be obsessed with sex or something like that. It's like a more integrated, more mature perspective.
Or just take a blue pill to
get
hard. Like, the thing is when we're not working in certain ways, that's a sign to the body, like, hey, you need to look at this. You need to see like what's going on. If you need to use, something to improve your sex, that's the body speaking, like, hey, we need attention here. And that's why I love the Tao and the ancient Ayurvedic practices, is because they look at like, okay, what's missing, and how can we circulate the energy, how can we build up the chi so that the body works in harmony,
find balance. Do you want to share with us a few like things people could even start doing on their own?
Absolutely. Well, I've been basically sitting on my heel the whole time.
I noticed.
And I've put my heel onto my perineum, which is it's in between the scrotum and the anus. And so just by sitting on a tennis ball or on your heel, you're going to ground your energy, because that's like it's called the $1 million point in Chinese medicine, and or the Hui Yin, I believe is what it's called. And that acupressure point,
putting pressure there.
That acupressure point is very grounding, and it's also just starting to pump the sexual energy. And so I recommend, if you're gonna like meditate, put a tennis ball right there. You can breathe into that space. We also talked about,
it's gonna be pretty intense for a lot of people to do that.
It could be, and if you need to like lift your hips a little bit, I mean, there's not like a ton of pressure on it. I'm not like sitting directly on it.
Okay.
If I'm sitting right on top of my heel and not like in the chair, that's a lot of weight. That's too much. But if you can get flexible enough to just put it right there, where it's just touching, that's a great way to ground. Testicle breathing. It's something that we can do. So what I recommend is getting to the edge of a chair. Now you guys can see my feet. Maybe can they see my feet?
Probably not.
Okay. Well, you just get to the edge of the chair, and ideally you're doing this naked, so you can, as a man, you feel the testicles kind of hanging off the chair a little bit. And what I like to do is I just inhale. I inhale down and imagine that my testicles are filling up like 2 little balloons. And then as I exhale, if you have the capacity and the muscle connection, you can just draw your belly in and pull your testicles up. Okay, so we inhale down, exhale, pull the testicles up so they aren't hanging so much. Inhale down, they hang, they fill up like balloons. Exhale, draw the belly in, pull the anus, the perineum up, pull the testicles up, inhale down, relax, exhale, you pull them up. We call that testicle breathing. Massaging your testicles is a great practice. You can do it. You can just do it with one hand, just squeezing, or you can do it with two hands, where you're kneading the testicles.
Yeah, so it's like self-massage.
Self-massage.
You're being mindfully breathing with it. Can you speak to that? Would that help people avoid prostate cancer, potentially? That kind of thing?
Yeah, so the topic of prostate cancer is it's kind of an ironic one. Because the reason that doctors say you need to ejaculate is because what's happening in ejaculation is a pumping of the prostate. So there's the muscle contractions that are flushing the semen out, and that's what's pumping the prostate. Oftentimes with prostate disease is it's not getting pumped. It's not being tonified.
Is that word again?
Yeah. Or it's not being purged.
It's being neglected. It's not being attended to. It's not
exactly. So by learning to squeeze your perineum and doing what are called, most of the Western world would refer to as Kegels.
Right.
Squeezing, that's going to pump the prostate. And so massaging the testicles will help, or just doing some prostate massage. You can do it from the outside, right onto the $1 million point, just massaging the perineum, getting into there. A lot of people are a little afraid to do more of internal prostate massage through the anus with a tool, because they think oh no, if I put something up if a man puts something up their anus, it's going to make them something. It's actually quite pleasurable. It's really beautiful, and it's good for your prostate. So I recommend it for people.
Interesting. Yeah.
But even if if you neglect or don't use the insertion, just squeezing your perineum on a daily basis, massaging down there, doing testicle breathing, it's gonna support it.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Well, those are some great practices people could just start doing on their own.
Totally.
And working with the breath in that way can be so powerful.
It's very meditative. And more people need to consciously breathe to relax.
I mean, you use the word sexual kung fu. We could talk about sexual yoga, like a similar meaning, right? Yeah,
totally. One of the books that I really love is by Eric Yudlov, and it's Taoist esoteric yoga, or sexual Taoist esoteric yoga. It's kind of the terminology around it. But yeah, sexual yoga. It's all yoga. Yoga is union. It's being present. And there's different lineages. Yeah.
And then, well, actually, we haven't talked about this, which maybe doesn't like a little bit of a relief, but a lot of people, when they get into this world, men can become obsessed with, I mean, you just mentioned it, not ejaculating. I kind of wanted to hear your take on that and speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. I'll speak on my own experience first. When I first got into a lot of this work, I was like, oh no, I shouldn't ejaculate. I don't want to give my energy away, is kind of my thought process. And then I would be having sex and I would ejaculate and I'd be like, fuck, I just fucked up. I did something wrong.
Then maybe shaming yourself or trying to be perfectionistic.
Yeah, and then it takes away from the beautiful love-making experience that just happened.
Yeah.
And so, semen retention is really big. NoFap is really big. And I appreciate the intent behind it, which is teaching men to maybe not masturbate so much or watch porn, which can be detrimental. But it has its own shadows as well, because if we're just focusing on the retention as a part of our process or our experience, we lose the presence of what is here, what is now, the orgasmic energy and potential that can be moved. I also am a huge proponent of semen retention challenges. I'm actually about to work with my men's group and encourage them to do a 21-day semen retention challenge, which for some men, when we're doing these practices, the balls, they basically they're not able to feel the energy in the testicles. And so I've found that if you can hold your seed for 21 days, your balls will turn online. Now, the caveat with...
That's it's an important point.
Yeah.
It could help make you more energetically sensitive in a sense of feeling and moving energy in your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally, because, I mean, I never retained my seed. I never went like more than, 5 days or let alone 4 days, 3 days.
Right.
Up until, a few years ago. Like it was a daily type of thing for me. But the semen is full of life force energy. And Montauk Chia, the Taoist teachings, they have a formula. If you're 20 years old, you should go every 4 days. If you're 30 years old, every 8 days. 40 years old, every 16 days before you have a release. Now, that can be supportive. It can be all well and good. My focus and the way that I've approached this is now semen expansion, seminal expansion. So if you're in a cultivation practice, moving sexual energy, whether that's solo or with a lover, go at least 20 minutes. Go at least work up to 20 minutes, taking your time. You don't have to necessarily be touching your genitals, but being in that aroused state for at least 20 minutes can allow us to get to full body states of orgasm. And from there, then it becomes much more, I wouldn't say easier, but much more accessible to have non-ejaculatory orgasms. So when you do go for at least 20 minutes, it's almost like scraping the cream off the top of a jug of milk. You got the jug of milk that has got all this nourishment. The cream is really good, but it's just a little bit, and you're not going to lose out on all the nutrients of the milk. So go for at least 20 minutes. See if you can expand your seminal power on a day-to-day basis.
It's a good message.
And play with it. And not hold shame around releasing.
You're saying if you wait 20 or more minutes, you're moving the energy more, you're cultivating more energy. If you do ejaculate at that point, you're not losing as much, perhaps.
Exactly.
Like there's an interesting idea that this is a big thing in Tantric Buddhism too, semen retention. But I had a teacher explain to me that there were different types of ejaculation, and kind of like what you were just sharing, like you're not always losing as much energy depending on how you're going about it. Yeah. Also like your intention with it and your kind of mindset with it. But the piece that I wanted to highlight was just like not being perfectionistic, not beating yourself up, like you said, not letting it take away from really good, sweet moments of connection. And like having a sense of that smile, that self-love and appreciation.
And I think something that I shared with you when we were working together is if you release, celebrate it.
Celebrate it.
Like celebrate the moment of release. As somebody who was crippled by premature ejaculation, I was the notorious two-pump chump. It took me a long time to have long extended sex, and sometimes it only goes 10 minutes. And so I celebrate it. I really intently make the most of it and allow it to be as pleasurable as possible.
Yeah. Make it more conscious and appreciate it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like everyone can find their own way, but it's good to have more knowledge and tools out there. And you could, like you said, you could have a challenge. You could have a specific period of time where you're really challenging yourself to not ejaculate for an extended period of time. And then you might not want to be trying to do that all the time. Maybe have a month or two where you're focusing on that, and then maybe just being more natural, more relaxed, more present, more the appreciation. And you can find more of a balance. So it's not like this part of you that's trying to control everything. Because that's where I think things can go off.
It's like fasting, right? You don't want to fast 10 days a month every month. I mean, I wouldn't want to. Or you wouldn't want to do a 30-day fast every month.
Might not last very long.
Whatever it is. So we we can challenge ourselves, we can fast from something so we learn about ourselves. And so if you are doing a challenge, like, notice what comes up.
Yeah.
What urges happen, like what thoughts, what emotions arise. It's all awareness.
Yeah, and you mentioned
creative.
doing it as part of a group, and then you can have that
Yeah.
group support and energy that can be really helpful. And again, being seen, being witnessed, so it's not just all about you trying to do it yourself.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's good to like remember your deeper intentions, right? Like why you're doing it. Like maybe like something like I want to expand my capacity to love. That's a beautiful intention,
Absolutely.
right? That's gonna feel very different than I just want to prove myself or I want to be the best or have that more kind of small self egoic kind of desires or intentions.
Yeah. And according to the Tao, sexual energy has two primary characteristics. That's to bind and amplify. So when the intention is set of like, yeah, I want to increase my capacity to love, that's binded and it's amplified. Especially when there's that real conscious, healthy intention behind it. And so, yeah, I always encourage, like, the first thing, set an intention, whether you're doing a challenge or whether you're about to have sex. Yeah.
Make it more intentional.
Make it more intentional.
Good. Well, it's been great having you on the podcast. I feel like we could talk forever, but
I know, man. Me too.
Do you want to? Where can people find you if they want to find more about you?
Yeah, I'm quite active on Instagram, so at JPK Experience, my Instagram. Then my website is jpkexperience.com. Currently I'm running a group container called the Bro Dojo, where a brother of mine and myself are teaching these ancient technologies in a group container, and that's where we're doing that semen retention challenge. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Love it. Yeah, and I'll link those down below. But thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Welcome, man. It was an honor to be here. Really appreciate the energy behind all this. Thanks.